Hello, everybody, and welcome to our session today on Securing the Future Ride, focused on cybersecurity and connected cars. My name is Tyler Gannon. I am the Vice President of Product Marketing and Strategic Alliances with Device Authority, and I'm thrilled to be here today in my fourth virtual summit with a couple of valued partners. We're still waiting for one of them to connect. He's had some technical difficulties, but we wanted to get started in the interest of time. So hopefully he'll catch up to us when he can connect. So we just heard from Kayvon Karimi at Microsoft talking about the promise of generative AI for the automotive market, and a lot of it focused on the positive impact of generative AI when you look at the start to finish of the automotive supply chain, all the way from R&D to production of vehicles, to putting those vehicles in service and end of life and repair of those vehicles, where AI can have a dramatic impact. The flip side of that is on the security side, because those same capabilities in connected cars that provide services to their owners also provide threat vectors for bad actors. And as Kayvon aptly put it, that was a great quote. He said, "When things become connected, they become visible," and we know that most of the data breaches that happen today are as a result of human error making those types of connections visible, sometimes to the wrong person, sometimes to the wrong application. And if you were with the kickoff this morning with our CEO Darren Antle, he made a great point to say most hackers aren't breaking in; they're logging in, and that's why we see so many of these connections and breaches coming from bad actors actually logging into the available connections and going from there. And those types of credential-based attacks, we know, very hard to detect and very hard to mitigate. And so that's something that we want to consider when we look at the complexity of the automotive supply chain. As Kayvon put it, cars really have become the world's most complex threat surface when you look at just the sheer number of systems in a car, the types of attacks that are going after cars, and the threat vectors. And so today, I'm pleased to have a couple of partners, Ronnie Shalom, who is the Chief of Product at Argus Cybersecurity, joining us, and eventually Brian Carpenter from CyberArk will be joining us to talk about their perspectives in automotive cybersecurity and how their companies are approaching some very difficult issues today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow each of them to introduce themselves, and then we'll get started with a conversation with, I think, some pretty standard questions that resonate with most people in the state of cybersecurity in connected cars. So Ron, go ahead and give yourself an introduction and a little bit about Argus, and then hopefully we'll catch up with Brian.
Excellent. Thank you, Tyler, for inviting me. So hi, everybody. My name is Ronnie Shalom, and I'm with Argus Cybersecurity. Basically, Argus Cybersecurity is a company that specializes and focuses on automotive cybersecurity for almost 10 years. We're just getting ready to celebrate our 10th year in just a few weeks from now. So for anyone who doesn't know Argus, let me share a little bit background, kind of, one slide says it's all. These numbers are a little bit not fully up to date. We're in about more than 65 million vehicles already deployed. Already, some of them are on the road, some of them are now getting on the road. But we have, about more than 100 customers by now that already deployed our security measures in their cars. Argus is about 200 plus employees that are split across multiple global offices. Our headquarters is in Israel, where I'm at now, but we have offices in all the expected places, so Japan, Korea, Germany, France, and the US, and a few more that are more engineering offices. We've been building and developing our security products for several years now. So a significant amount of knowledge and experience went into those products. Basically, we invested and we continue to invest and innovate in this field over the years. As a result, we have about 100 patents that we were granted, or some of them are still pending over the years, especially again in this cybersecurity for the automotive industry. We have several partners that help us complete our offering, our end-to-end offering. As, for example, Device Authority, we work very closely with CyberArk, which I hope they will be joining us shortly, as well as we announced just a couple of months ago about our plan between Device Authority, CyberArk, Argus, and Microsoft to build the next generation security for the automotive and mobility industry. Just a little bit about what Argus is all about, because Argus is very unique. We're one of the very few, less than a handful of companies that actually offer a complete end-to-end solution, starting from the development phase, where we have automated tools to help you build your own automated TARA, threat analysis and risk analysis map, as well as the ability to test code for potential zero-day weaknesses and other security issues and get remediation advices, as well as an automated pen testing platform that can help both with fuzz testing and pen testing, again, automatically, to help you identify additional potential risks and threats during your development phase. It integrates with your CI/CD platform, and the ability to provide a complete software supply chain security, even using binary images. So we can automatically scan a binary image and detect vulnerabilities, other potential threats and risks. Dynamic and static analysis are all part of our automated supply chain security tool. Inside our vehicle, we have multiple protection systems for the ECUs, the Ethernet buses, as well as the CAN buses. These are intrusion detection and prevention systems that can automatically detect anomalies and other potential threats, alert on them, and help you remediate and stop them whenever a threat is detected. It is all managed by our fleet protection system, the Argus XDR, that basically provides full extended detection and response solution across your entire fleet. Last but not least is our theft prevention solution that is mainly focuses on protecting vehicles from being stolen by thieves. It's very interesting to see that recently thieves became similarly like hackers, using cyber techniques with modern cars to basically steal them quickly. All of our products are offered with an envelope of services that can carry you from either engineering services all the way to type approval services and everything in between. This is Argus in just a few minutes. We're still waiting for Brian. What do you want to do, Tyler?
We'll just move forward, and you'll be the star of the show, Ron. Okay. And so I won't steal CyberArk's thunder. We just got word that Brian is having internet connectivity issues at his location, and we'll let him introduce CyberArk eventually when he does join. But CyberArk is one of the industry leaders in identity security and privileged access management for those identities, and they're a key part of the partnership that we have with Microsoft and with Argus. And I encourage anybody that saw Kayvon's presentation just before this to go to the Microsoft Mobility page It's a great series of blogs that includes a lot of the detail about how we fit in with Microsoft's vision, and a little bit more detail about each of the companies in there. But we'll get going with the questions here. And just a quick reminder for the audience, we're going to walk through some questions here with Ron, but you can also pose your own questions at the bottom of your screen. You should see a question box. Go ahead and type those questions in at any time during this session, and they'll queue up. And when we get to the Q&A session at the end, we'll do our best to answer those questions. So let's get started here. So I guess the first question, Ron, when we think about connected vehicle security, one of the first things that comes up is, tell me a little bit about the trends. What are the most current, trends and threats in automotive security that you as an expert in the field are seeing?
That's an excellent question. And I liked the picture of my car that you put on top. So thank you for that as well. Just waiting for it to get here. So key trends. First and foremost, I think that I heard that also in Kevin's session. Basically, connectivity. By all the analysts and all the market trends show basically that by 2030, 95% of vehicles sold will be connected. Once they're connected, basically there's a way in, right? It's no longer an issue of getting physically next to the car in order to steal it or to do something to it. It's connected, so we can remotely access the car as long as it is not protected. But there are additional trends coming down the road. First and foremost, autonomous driving. Because of autonomous driving, because of getting connected, and SDV, another software-defined vehicle, basically makes the car code on wheels. Software is now becoming a key component in the automotive industry. In fact, when I talk to CEOs and other people in this industry, basically it's funny to see that if maybe a few years ago, the stars of this industry were the mechanical engineers talking about new springs and other mechanical elements of the car. Now everyone is talking security, is talking software. Software is now becoming the major part of the car. In fact, there is an interesting way to look at it, because SDV, software-defined vehicle, is changing this industry in such a way that I just recently heard NXP's CEO talking about that and trying to explain that in a very interesting way. It used to be that when you went into a dealer and bought a new car, that was the best of the car it ever gets. And ever since then, over the time, the car became less and less. However, now, because of software updates and firmware updates capabilities, now when you go into the dealership and buy a new car, this is the worst of the car. It only gets better over time. New capabilities will be updated, and new software and features will be uploaded to the car remotely. So the car is only getting better over the years. This is a major shift in the paradigm of how cars are perceived by the consumers and what do they expect from their car. But keep in mind, everything has to be secured, because now with everything connected, this is becoming a major issue. In fact, the way I like to think about it is that automotive security is now keeping in lockstep with IT security. We see an ever-growing attack surface, exactly like Kevin mentioned in his session. There are so many attack surfaces, and they are growing every time. It started with the infotainment, which was kind of a very obvious first step, but There's the telematics, V2X, obviously Bluetooth. Think of it, the first thing that you do, most of us are doing when they enter their car is connect your phone to the car through a USB. You don't know if your phone is protected, you have no idea, but basically you connect it directly to the car, and that's an excellent entry point for an attacker or a hacker to get into the car with almost zero security. We see recently more and more supply chain attacks. We see them as, hiding backdoors in open source libraries where basically they over time gets integrated into your cars. Think about the huge ecosystem of building a car, tier twos, sharing software with tier ones, that sharing elements with the OEMs. There are so many different levels and so many different vendors that take part in developing a single model that basically it's almost next to impossible to be able to fully control and fully detect all the potential risks and threats that can basically threat your entire supply chain. And this is becoming more and more predominant in this industry. Even as I mentioned, by the way, which is interesting to see, even in the aftermarket, we see that even car theft has undergone some sort of a revolution, quote unquote. Thieves are now using cyber techniques to steal your cars in seconds. If they know, if they can find out the specific commands that are being used to unlock the doors and start the engine, they can easily overcome any immobilizer or any other type of a security measure that is being used today, and they can easily steal cars. And we see that as a growing trend across the globe, especially in the US. In the UK, it became a major issue, same as in Canada, Japan, and many other countries. So it's kind of spreading around as well. So even that is growing, but we do see signs of cyber ransomware. Attacks are up. Basically, we see a 4x growth year over year over the past couple of years. So this is becoming a major issue and a major concern to OEMs, which basically led to the fact that there are new regulations. I'm sure everybody heard about WP29 and specifically UNR 155, as well as ISO 21434, which are trying to address those risks, especially with the coming, like I said, with the coming autonomous driving and car connectivity, which is becoming a major trend in this market.
No, thank you for that. And you actually had a perfect segue to the second question, but just to tie up on that first question, it's fascinating to think that not only are cars today, when you buy them at the dealership, already one of the most complex machines out there, just in terms of the number of systems, the amount of code, but they get even more complex the longer you own them, which is fascinating to me. So what you might see today, it would be vastly changed a year after you buy the car as new services come online. And I think the complexity of not only is it the suppliers to the systems in the car, but now the driver themselves become a security threat unknowingly in some cases. And I actually have seen, for example, some YouTube videos of a car thief who's being documented by reporters, who quite literally goes up to a car, uses his own general key fob to defeat the security of the car, gets in, puts a device in the OBD port, which disables all the alarms, and he drives off with the car in under 30 seconds. So that's kind of scary. So moving ahead, you talked a little bit about the regulations and the other sort of drivers, no pun intended, in the industry that are making some of these companies stand up and pay a little bit more attention about security? What are sort of the main ones, and how do you see companies reacting to them?
So yes, that's very true. We see a trend that companies are increasing their security, especially first and foremost, like we said, both of us, regulations. Regulations are driving it. I won't go into the specifics. Sorry about that. Of the different requirements in each and every part of the regulation. Actually, Argus just recently published a regulatory document that tries to cover the different regulations in the automotive industry across the globe. We haven't completed all the geographies. We covered all the key main countries, and it's already more than 300 pages long. So there are a lot of relevant regulations for both cybersecurity as well as privacy. We haven't really touched even the privacy issues, but GDPR and other privacy regulations are also driving and are being a major concern for the automotive companies that are now, like I said, sharing a lot of information from the car, from the driver, to the cloud, to their backend databases for many different reasons. So that's another point to keep in mind. Privacy issues shouldn't be separate, by the way, from security issues. But coming back, we see another interesting transformation, or even a revolution, I would say, in the automotive industry with new business models. Basically, we start to see it's very new, but based on several meetings that I had and a lot of discussions with OEMs, we see this as a major trend in the industry. New business model, such as subscription-based and service-based models, even a complete change of the entire ownership model is coming towards us. Why is that? Because companies, same as you've probably seen with Tesla, once you buy the car, you can at any point after that buy additional capabilities and features such as Sentry and other capabilities like that that you pay. You pay for them as a service. So it's no longer the one-time payment and you get the car from your dealer and then drive it away and it's yours and this is how it is and it will not change. Like I said before, with SDV and the new over-the-air capabilities, cars can be upgraded on the go after they have been bought and they are already owned, and that is changing the business models. Changing the business models and introducing such new ones, again, open up an opportunity for hackers to make money, either just for them to unlock capabilities that are behind a payment firewall, or just another way for them to make some damages to the companies in this industry by unlocking capabilities, by changing capabilities that were not supposed to be changed. So it's another entry point and another potential target for hackers.
Yeah.
We see another element that is very relevant because of the regulations. There's a higher interest in enabling faster development and enabling shorter development times, quicker test intervals and integration cycles, basically shorter time to market. It's becoming a major issue in the industry. The complexity of the cars are driving more and more challenges in the development process, and this ability or in a way threat, especially with the introduction of Chinese brand, which seems to be very efficient, very quick to market, this is now becoming a major issue around the globe for car manufacturers, how they can get their car being developed quicker and faster, higher quality, and more security.
Yeah, all fascinating, all very fascinating. And so, and that echoes some of the things that Kayvon was saying earlier. And this is where, the theme of this conference is AI in the era of or zero trust in the era of AI. And AI is all pervasive, it seems. And in companies attempt to shorten their development cycles and time to market. I mean, that's where those tool sets come in, which introduces its own set of challenges. So shifting gears a little bit, we talked in 1 and 2 sort of about the regulatory environment and some of the trends and drivers. Let's get a little more specifically about an area of security that factors in really in all aspects of the automotive supply chain: identity security. So if you wouldn't mind commenting on where you see identity security playing a role in sort of OT, so the device side, but also just in general in automotive, how do you see this evolving over time?
Of course. So basically, the way we look at it and what we hear from our customers as well, identity is kind of the basic element that on top of it you can actually build your security solution. Without identity, it's basically impossible almost to introduce complete security. And it's a cliche by now, but everybody knows it. Your security is as good as your weakest link, right? So without strong identity security, there's actually no solution, no full solution that can be introduced. So I don't know if Brian joined us and he wants to comment on the OD part. If not, Brian, are you with us?
I think he's still connecting his audio, so we'll give him a minute.
Sure. So, he dropped. Sorry. I was hoping he just came online on time. So anyways, coming back, identity is certainly a major part of the overall architecture, especially I'll actually start with the part that we're covering, Argus is covering, the onboard security or in-vehicle security. Obviously, in order to be able to protect the fleet, the entire fleet, each and every car, and oftentimes each and every element within the car, needs to have its own secured identity. The ability of detecting identifying the specific elements inside the car, because the car is now a collection of endpoints. We tend to think about it as a single car, but this single car is often comprised of hundreds of ECUs and other elements connected over very complex buses, CAN buses and Ethernet buses, and other capabilities that are basically, there's a lot of information and a lot of traffic that is traveling in between the different elements of the car, and obviously how the car is being connected to the cloud or your backend. And the same goes also for the manufacturing process. Like I said, and like Kevin mentioned before, it's very important, given the complexity of the ecosystem, given the complexity of the life cycle of the car, to introduce security from the get-go all throughout the entire life cycle of the vehicle. And a major part of this life cycle is the manufacturing part, the time where basically the cars are being developed and build. I already touched a little bit about the need for shorter development cycles and shorter test and integration cycles. But part of it is also the issue around how you can create, for example, a device twin and support virtual development that can help shorten these cycles simply by automating and introducing new development techniques or processes, if you will, into this mix. But after this, like I said, the cars goes on the road, and each and every car has its own identity. Each and every car needs to be monitored, and especially, and oftentimes, what we see is the need to track specific elements within the car to be able to detect trends, to be able to detect potential threats that can risk not just a single car but risk maybe the entire fleet, a specific model, a specific year. This is highly tied into identity security because each and every element is now reporting back to the backend services and databases, telematics, information, logs about itself. So it's now a critical element of the overall infrastructure.
Yeah, thank you for that, for sure. And kind of extending that conversation now, you and I both spent time at Microsoft, and Microsoft has a growing practice in the area of sort of IT centric security, and they've been there a long time. But over the past several years, their reach has kind of extended into the device side, where historically you would have your security staff sort of inside the firewall worried about those devices and those people. But now increasingly, particularly in automotive, we have this wide array of devices that are outside of the firewall and might not be directly connected or observable by the IT department. So how do you see those two worlds converging? Maybe what are some of the challenges and what are some of the things that Argus is doing to help bring the two worlds together?
So that's a very important trend that we have identified several years ago. The convergence of IT and OT. Even back, like I said, in my Microsoft days, we've started to see this trend where both IT and OT security are converging. The idea is that there are many different entry points or potential threats to the organization. The organization is comprised of not just obviously the connected cars are one entry point. The manufacturing floors are another potential asset that needs to be protected. Same goes for all the backend services, but also think about dealerships, think about all the other elements. In order to be able to detect potential attacks and threats on your company, it's very important to get a complete view of all the different attack services, get information about them, analyze them as one single picture, not as separate silos, just looking at the connected cars, just focusing on the manufacturing floors, or just protecting your backend cloud. It's not enough. The only way to detect an attack, and think most attackers are very advanced. They are using AI-based techniques. We're not the only ones using AI in order to build smart detection engines. They are also using AI in many different ways to generate high complexity attacks. So in order to detect those highly stealthy attacks, very advanced attacks, the only way to do it is to collect even small signals across the entire deployment. Like I said, the OT environment, the IT environment, the cloud environment, connected cars, collect them all in one single place and have your detection engines run across all the data that you connected to be able to detect threats, even based on just these, like I said, small signals that we might see some signal coming from the manufacturing floor, another one from the IT, and a third one coming from a connected car. The only way to understand the full scope of the attack and provide full understanding of what's going on is based on converging all these different security silos into one single one. This is, by the way, one of the key reasons why Argus has moved from just looking at the specific elements inside the car into building a full XDR platform that is now integrated into Microsoft Sentinel, uh, same as your infrastructure. So we can then see everything and connect everything under one into one single large database that help us run a lot of detection capabilities and detect those quiet attacks, well, sometimes quiet.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. And for the audience who's still with us, thrilled to finally welcome Ryan Carpenter from CyberArk, who very fittingly, working for a security company, had to get through several levels of security to log into the platform. But nevertheless, we're thrilled to have you join us here today. And maybe what I'll do in the interest of time, Brian, if you just want to quickly introduce CyberArk to the audience, because I did not do it justice, and then maybe just give your perspective on those last two questions, right? The role of identity security in OT, and particularly as it applies to the automotive supply chain, and then how you see these two worlds, OT and IT, converging with regards, again, to identity security.
Yeah, absolutely. And my apologies for being late, but thank you for inviting CyberArk to be a part of this presentation. For all of you who aren't aware of CyberArk, we have been a company for about 25 years. We got our start in the privileged security space and really started that space. So if you look at privileged access security, when you look at the Magic Quadrant for Gartner, CyberArk has been identified as a leader in that space for the entire time that Gartner has been tracking that. And privileged identities are really any identity that can make changes that impact the operational service or business services within your organization. So we recognize CyberArk when we started, primarily focusing on root, admin, those type of power credentials that attackers are looking for when they gain access to your environment, those keys of the kingdom, a lot of people like to call it. But we also recognize that other types of access can lead to some privileged as well. So your workforce access, your endpoint privilege manager, where your endpoint, the privilege credentials on your endpoints, all those can be the beginning of attacks. So if you think of like the SolarWinds attack, that was started on endpoints. They got onto the endpoints, they were able to get the privilege credentials for those endpoints, and then they were able to go from there. So CyberArk, we've evolved from just privilege security to where we're now able to secure your workforce through things like multi-factor authentication, single sign-on. We're able to lock down your endpoints with our endpoint privilege manager product. We can provide remote employees or vendors access to these privilege credentials via our vendor PAM tool. So we have a whole platform of products that can help secure all of your identities, whether it's human or machine. And what a lot of people don't realize is that most organizations have at least 45 machine identities for every one human identity. And that number is just continuing to increase. With the digital transformation and the cloud migration and all these things that organizations are going through, a lot of the devices in OT and IoT that used to be air gapped and segregated or separated from the IT environments are now becoming connected and organizations are realizing they have to find a way to secure those as well. CyberArk gives you a way to secure all of those identities across human and machine. And then remind me, Tyler, what was the first question that?
Well, yeah. So specifically, with that as the backdrop, all the breadth and depth of what CyberArk provides and identity security. How do how does it apply specifically to the OT side? Right. We talked earlier about how complex the automotive supply chain is, which really spans early R&D to the manufacturing process to putting the vehicles in service, and then sort of the end of life and service and maintenance lifespan. Where does CyberArk sort of fit into that puzzle, and how does your identity security platform sort of support what's going on there?
Okay, yeah, great question. CyberArk, you mentioned the different phases of a car manufacturing, everything from the software development for the software that goes into the car, to the actual manufacturing of the car, to the updates to the software once the car leaves the manufacturing facility. And CyberArk can fit into that very nicely, whether it's on the software development side, where we have a tool called Secrets Manager, which gives tools that are part of that that software development lifecycle the ability to securely connect to our vault to retrieve secrets that they need to implement and develop that software. We're also able to work with tools like Device Authority, where we use you as a gateway to be able to connect to a lot of the OT devices to be able to manage the credentials on those devices. And then as either applications or vendors need access to those credentials, we give them a secure way to retrieve those credentials from the vault to do their functions. We also share that information. I heard Ron mention earlier where you're looking for those anomalies, and we're able to share information for who's accessing those credentials and when, and that way Argus can then use that information to look and see if people are accessing those devices without going through CyberArk. That should be a red alert. That would be something that companies would want to take action on, and then we can go in and rotate that credential to make sure that it doesn't persist past that session. So another layer of security there. And we integrate with a lot of different companies when it comes to being able to share that information and take action on it. We can automate that action so that you're not waiting for a human to get that alert and figure out what they need to do and so on. We can automate that action to make it more timely. And really having a tool like CyberArk managing your privilege access and your privilege credentials gives organizations to be more identity centric when it comes to security. Without a tool like CyberArk, if you have admin credentials, a lot of times that's shared among a lot of different people. So it's really hard to understand which person used that credential and when. With CyberArk, we're able to say that it was Brian Carpenter that used it on May 14th at 11 o'clock Eastern versus just saying it was somebody from an admin group. So really allows organizations to be more identity centric. And last piece here, I think a lot of organizations are looking for those tools that they can get more out of. They don't want to have a solution for IT and a solution for OT and something different. They want something they can leverage across all of their platforms. And CyberArk gives them the ability to have one solution to secure all their identities across all those different types of devices.
No, thank you very much. And certainly that coming from the RSA conference last week, I mean, that was such a big topic of conversation. I was actually in a panel where there was a CISO that said, the trend had been the single pane of glass. But then he turned to the audience and said, how many single panes of glass do you have? Probably many. And so, and I think that was a nod to this notion of convergence and not just kind of dealing with data in silos, particularly when that interconnectedness requires you're aware of what's happening from the beginning of your supply chain all the way to the end. And I think CISOs are now under pressure more and more to deal with all of those areas. Okay, so that's great. And we do have a couple of questions, and I want to make sure we have a few minutes left in the session. I had one question myself, which I'm going to pose to the two of you. And this is because, I deal with all of our strategic partnerships at Device Authority. I spent many years at Microsoft working with partners, and I very much value the power of partner ecosystems and working together. I would love to get your thoughts on sort of, again, going back to Microsoft, who approached us, brought us together, asked us to kind of help them put together the next generation of security for automotive and mobility. I'd love to get your thoughts on why Microsoft cares about that, and what's the real value to the end customer of having a partner ecosystem as opposed to purchasing independent capabilities from different vendors. Ron, go ahead.
Well, I think this goes back to a trend that Gartner actually identified a couple of years ago. It's about consolidation. A recent survey from Gartner showed that 75% of organizations are pursuing a security vendor consolidation strategy. Yes, there are still jokes around it, like Brian, you said. So you have multiple single screens, yes, single pane of glass. But still, 65% of organizations, 75% of organizations are looking to consolidate. On average, it's a well-known fact that on average you have about 70 different vendors to cover security capabilities. And by integrating them and consolidating them, the first and foremost target for all those CISOs is to improve risk posture. Having tightly connected and tightly integrated solutions, even from multiple vendors, but pre-integrated. Not that it's up to you to actually solve those problems and get them talking and get them integrated, is a major benefit. It reduces time to value. It makes the overall solution more secured, and to be able to address the needs of an automotive OEM with, like I mentioned before, the development, the manufacturing floors, the connected car fleets, the backend, the IT security, the dealerships, all this huge ecosystem. We need a company like Microsoft to be able to consolidate and provide a full end-to-end complete solution that can encompass the entire ecosystem.
Thank you. How about you, Brian? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Ron just said. I think, as I mentioned earlier, companies are looking for ways to get more out of what they already have. And I think by Microsoft looking for the leaders in their space and finding ways to have these tools integrated. So, we're working and we have some great integrations in place or in process that are going to make companies more secure, more compliant, and more efficient. I think the efficiency thing is something that often gets overlooked, but is a key part for organizations. And if you look at, the thousands of different types of IoT and OT devices that they have to manage, it's overwhelming. And I think if they can find tools like ours that are integrated and can help them solve that security problem and that compliance problem, but also make them more efficient, that, I think is really what Microsoft is looking for here, and in identifying some leaders in the space and how they can be brought together.
Yeah, I agree. So Device Authority, we very much are partner driven. We always have been. We work very hard to not only cultivate great relationships with companies like yours, but also always be looking sort of to what's next, what customers might be needing next to accomplish their goals. So we appreciate having you as part of that ecosystem for us. And here's a good, I think, sort of general question. The theme of this conference is AI. And we didn't talk a lot about it. We sort of touched upon it, but just very quickly, I think, what are your thoughts on the impact of AI for your respective companies? How's it changing maybe the way you you approach your customers or approach product development? Where are you seeing that, in your own businesses?
Brian, do you want to go first?
Okay,
Sure.
yeah, Brian,
I think Ron, I heard you mention earlier that not only are our companies using AI to find ways to improve our products and be more efficient internally and so on, which is definitely the case, but unfortunately, attackers are using AI to do all those same things, become more efficient and improve their attacks. So it's vital that we find ways to leverage AI to stay ahead of the attackers. I always hear the analogy of attackers. We have to be right 100% of the time. They just have to be right one time. And by leveraging AI and finding ways to incorporate different AI into our different products, and that is definitely something CyberArk is placing a huge emphasis on, both internally, like I said, to help us become more efficient, but also in ways that we can improve our products to help our clients maybe analyze attacks or identify attacks more quickly, and incorporate controls in to block them from going through the attack chain lifecycle and doing their reconnaissance and lateral movement and so on.
Great. That's exactly what we see. We certainly leverage AI as well across our entire portfolio. Basically, we identified a potential challenge in this industry. We're actually getting support and getting experts, specifically cybersecurity experts in the automotive industry is a challenge. So we're building the AI consultant, if you will, that will help either security experts to better understand what's going on, analyze massive amounts of data, because now everything that is getting connected, all the information, like we talked before, all the data coming from the different elements, from the different services, from the identity services and manufacturing floors and everything else, there's a massive data coming down our way. And we're using AI techniques to identify anomalies, to better analyze the data and map the different elements, and creating kind of a connectivity map, if you will, as well. But we're also using AI as a supportive element in the development phase, from tiny ML machines that can help detect anomalies, but also for let's say an expert that you can always ask, like co-pilots. You can ask them, is this risk important to me? Is this risk, what is the severity of this risk? Do I need to fix it now? Is it okay to leave it? You can ask it whatever you like. You'll get a response, and based on years of experience that we collected, we're building those experts to help both in the development phase as well as in the operational phase, where you run your own SOC and needs a highly qualified analyst to give you advices on what to do.
Yeah, all great insights. And so we're running low on time. I will say my response to the AI question is I'd encourage you to watch our CTO, James Penny. He's going to be doing a session a little bit later on Keyscaler AI, because not only do we help companies secure the devices generating the data they're using for their own AI applications, but we're actually building our own on the defensive side and helping uncover indicators of compromise and other things on the device side. I want to take just a moment to thank Ron and Brian for joining us. Brian, I apologize. It was so difficult for you to join us, but I'm glad you were able to make it in at the end. We appreciate your partnership. We're looking forward to doing great things together, and want to just thank you again for being here today. And I'll just remind the audience that any of the sessions throughout the virtual summit today are available on demand on the BrightTalk platform immediately after the session. So if you can't make a particular one, please go back and view it. And the Q&A is always available for you. So if you have questions about a particular session, you can always ask those questions and we'll be getting back to you. So with that, I'll wrap. Say thank you both. Appreciate the audience for being here today, and looking forward to some more great sessions coming up. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.